In this video, we're going to tell you everything you need to know about Marvel zombies and their appearance in Marvel Comics. Earth's hungriest heroes. As you all know by now, Marvel Comics isn't just a single universe filled with superheroes and sinister supervillains, it's a whole multiverse, with each dimension having its own weird, unusual twist. And although the bulk of the House of Ideas stories focus on the mainline Earth 616 universe most of the time, one of the weirdest, most unusual versions of Earth's mightiest heroes can be found in what was once a little known corner of the multiverse known as Earth 2149. Earth 2149 shares nearly the same characteristics as its mainline Marvel counterpart, except most, if not all, of the superheroes and villains we know and love have been turned into flesh-eating undead monstrosities. Oh, and Earth 2149 doesn't even have humans by the time we get a first glimpse of this universe, because the super zombies ate them all. Now, the Marvel Zombies made their first appearance within the pages of the OG Ultimate Fantastic Four run back in the 90s. This is the one that was set in 1610 universe. Specifically, we get introduced to this deadly world when the Ultimate Universe's Mr. Fantastic receives a message from who he believed was another non-hostile version of himself from a different universe. However, Reed and the Fantastic Four eventually found out that they had been duped. This was actually a trap set by the people of Earth 2149. The Marvel Zombies, at least the ones from 2149, aren't exactly mindless creatures. They share the same hunger for brains as the traditional zombie does, but they're actually capable of higher thinking. It's just that there's an insatiable hunger for human flesh that they just can't overcome. In any case, Earth 2149 wanted to take over Earth 1610 because they needed a new source of sustenance after they consumed everyone in their dimension. Its zombified version of the Fantastic Four went so far as to try to kidnap Ultimate Reed Richards as part of their plan. But this all fell flat when Earth 2149's Magneto, who happened to be the one of the last uninfected heroes of their world, shows up to help Ultimate Reed escape the clutches of Marvel's first zombie family. From there, Ultimate Reed would subdue the Brain Eaters and make moves to prevent more of their zombified pals from entering Earth 1610. Of course, it was only a matter of time before we saw Earth 2149's hungry heroes. Soon enough, the zombie Fantastic Four managed to escape captivity. This whole chapter in Earth 1610's history culminated with Ultimate Reed and Ultimate Doctor Doom doing a Freaky Friday mind swap before a demon from the Negative Zone took over Doom's body. With Reed still controlling Doctor Doom, demon-possessed form, he was able to drive back their zombified counterparts to their original homeworld. In the aftermath, Ultimate Reed and Doom switched back to their original bodies, and Doom found himself marooned on Earth 2149. But the thing is, the first couple of storylines where we meet the Marvel Zombies happens at a time where Earth 2149 was already a horror show. So we have to ask, what have these Brain Eaters been up to before they had plans to turn the citizens of Earth 1610 into livestock? Beginnings of the end. You can say that Earth 2149's story really starts within the pages of Marvel Zombies' Dead Days. It opens with Spider-Man, who had been infected with the so-called hunger virus by Earth 2149's own Star-Spangled Avenger, Captain America. And if you thought that wasn't bad enough, this world's Peter Parker ended up chowing down on his friends and family when the virus fully took over. The spacefaring hero Nova would pay the wall-crawler a visit only to witness him consuming Aunt May and his wife MJ. From there, Daredevil linked up with Nova only to end up becoming infected by the virus themselves. While this was happening, Captain America and the other Avengers of Earth 2149, who at this point have mostly turned into zombies, attempted to concoct a cure for their new gruesome condition, but it didn't work. Now, Earth 2149 at this point in time wasn't fully covered in undead heroes and villains just yet, but let's just say things were quickly taking a turn for the worse, as skirmishes between the turned crime fighters and the ones who have yet to be infected raged on in their world. The X-Men and Magneto were forced to take out their former allies from up north, Alpha Flight, after the whole team were infected by the hunger virus. Things got worse when an already infected giant man screwed over his pal Black Panther and started to keep him as emergency food supply. On the other hand, the Fantastic Four hadn't turned into flesh-eating zombies during this time yet, but the same thing couldn't be said for their kids, Valeria and Franklin. That's because a zombified She-Hulk had already gotten to Reed and Sue's children even before we met them. This whole ordeal ended with the Fantastic Four taking out the Emerald Empress. Eventually, the remaining uninfected heroes banded together in a last-ditch attempt to put an end to the ongoing zombie invasion. There weren't a lot of them either, just the Fantastic Four, Nova, Thor, Wolverine, Hulk, Iron Man, and Nick Fury among those who still hadn't fallen victim to the hunger. From there, the remaining big brains of the uninfected heroes like Tony, Bruce, and Reed tried to find a solution to the problem. But the infected heroes like Captain America ultimately decided to ride the undead wave and just go on existing as zombies. In the end, Earth 2149 turned into the wasteland that it is when Reed went crazy and came up with the idea that this whole zombie infestation was actually just another step in human evolution. With this in mind, Reed betrayed all the other uninfected superheroes of Earth 2149 and willingly added them to the zombie hordes, including himself. Their Dimension's Iron Man had a more brilliant idea in mind when all this was going down. Knowing that it was too late to save their zombified friends, he decided to craft a device that would help them find a universe similar to their own and just migrate there. Unfortunately, the whole scheme climaxed with Fury, Iron Man, and what was left of the uninfected heroes getting turned by the now zombified Fantastic Four. Sure, Nick was able to destroy Iron Man's device before joining the ranks of the undead in the hopes of preventing their dimension from spreading the hunger virus. But like we said, the Marvel zombies, at least the ones from 2149, possess this strange quality where they're able to retain their consciousness and individual talents even after they're fully infected. So Reed picked up Tony's interdimensional doodad and proceeded to reconstruct it. This turn of events eventually led to the zombie Fantastic Four coming into contact with Earth 1610 during their first appearance in the comics. The Marvel Zombies saga continues right in the aftermath of the Ultimate Fantastic Four's first run-in with their zombified counterparts. Here, Earth 2149 Magneto learned that there were still uninfected survivors on Asteroid M. Magneto tried to get to them, but ended up becoming a zombie himself after falling at the hands of the infected heroes. Things got even weirder when this dimension's Silver Surfer arrived on Earth to herald the coming of his master Galactus. As with everyone else, the zombified citizens of Earth managed to sink their teeth into old Silver Surfer, which then gave them the ability to harness a part of the power cosmic. They then proceeded to use this power, coursing through their undead veins, to feast on the other zombies of Earth 2149, hoping that it would at least help prevent them from consuming uninfected individuals who are at this point few and far between. Magneto was right about the acolytes. They were indeed still alive on Asteroid M. In fact, they tried to look for Magneto on Earth, but instead located Black Panther. And remember how Giant Man turned him into emergency rations? Well, by the time we see him again, we find out that Black Panther's old friend had already started dipping into his so-called stash. T'Challa's arms and a single foot had already gone down Giant Man's stomach by the time the acolytes reached him and their group escaped into space. Eventually, Galactus arrived on Earth's doorstep to proceed with its natural purpose, to eat the planet as part of the universal order of things. But as the story goes, the zombified heroes of Earth 2149 managed to overpower and add Galactus to their menu after they created a machine that augmented the fragments of the power cosmic they took from Silver Surfer. When the dust settled, zombified heroes like Spidey, Iron Man, and Wolverine, among others, also gained Galactus' energy after consuming the Celestial. They then used their newfound power-up to help them scour the stars for more food. In fact, Black Panther and the Acolytes came back to Earth half a decade after a break in outer space, only to find out that it had been abandoned. That's because the zombified heroes were already busy eating the rest of their universe, undead space. It would take about 4 decades after the fall of Earth 2149's Galactus before this whole universe turned into an undead wasteland. That's because the power cosmic augmented zombie heroes of this world proceeded to consume all forms of life they could find once they reached the stars. And by the time we meet them again, not even the likes of Thanos or the Phoenix were left alive. So our gruesome band of brain eaters decided to go back to their home planet Earth with the goal of rebuilding the same machine that Iron Man created to travel travel the multiverse. And if you haven't guessed it already, of course they were planning on consuming life from other dimensions, since the pantry of Earth 2149 was already out of stock. Back on Earth, we learn that the Black Panther and the Acolytes have established the final sanctuary for the uninfected called New Wakanda. The problem was T'Challa and the Acolytes weren't really seeing each other eye to eye when it came to how they should run their new community. Things came to a boiling point when the Acolytes tried to assassinate Black Panther. In turn, Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp, who was already zombified but had since overcome the urge to eat fresh meat, turned T'Challa into a zombie in order to help him deal with his attackers. The power cosmic infused zombie heroes making their way to Earth experienced a civil war of their own when the zombified Spidey and Luke Cage managed to get rid of their insatiable hunger. This made Luke and Pete gain even more rationality, which led them to realizing the error of their ways, namely eating everyone they came across. The other zombified heroes didn't take kindly to this, especially Giant Man, who is so deep in the zombie lifestyle that he now wanted to breed humans so that they could have an unlimited supply of food. The scuffle ended with Spidey and Luke joining the remaining survivors of New Wakanda to prevent the other zombified heroes from acquiring the interdimensional teleporter they were seeking. Eventually, Giant Man's faction came face to face with Black Panther, Spidey, Luke, and New Wakanda. T'Challa offered to strike a deal with their zombie adversaries at first, proposing that they should hand over the teleporter if Giant Man and his pals left New Wakanda alone. Realizing that this was basically a win-win, Giant Man agreed to the proposal, only for the Black Panther to renege on the deal and engage in an all-out war against the zombies. Chaos ensued in New Wakanda, and it ultimately ended on a rather weird note. That's because Giant Man suddenly realized he didn't have the insatiable hunger in him anymore while in the middle of their fight. This then led him to give his fellow Brain Eaters a speech, which strangely resulted in Giant Man and his zombie army more or less snapping out of their flesh-eating ways and ultimately working with the uninfected to rebuild New Wakanda. But this Marvel zombie saga is far from over. You see, if there was one real villain here, it's the guy named Malcolm Cortez, who happened to be in league with the Acolytes and their ideals. By the time the smoke of the war between the zombies and New Wakanda cleared, Malcolm got his hands on the teleporter. And since Malcolm had designs of his own to rule New Wakanda, he proceeded to use the teleportation device to maroon the zombies of Earth 2149 in an entirely different universe. How it all ended and how it all started. The immediate consequence of Malcolm using the teleporter on Earth 2149 zombies ended up transporting them to a universe called Earth 91126, aka Earth Z. However, the Marvel zombies also supposedly had run-ins with the mainline Marvel universe, Earth 616, during this time. This explains why Zombie Pool, or at least his head, managed to hang around with OG Deadpool in the mainline Marvel universe. For one, this couldn't have happened since the zombified heroes of Earth 2149 hadn't been able to travel the multiverse before Malcolm betrayed them, with the exception of the Zombie Fantastic Four quick trip to Earth 1610, of course. On the other hand, traveling to the mainline Marvel universe would have been at least improbable if it had happened after the events of the next story we're about to tell you, called Marvel Zombies Return. We don't want to spoil it for you now, but you'll find out why soon enough. Regardless, we're going to stick with what's more or less canon for the Marvel Zombies sagas here and focus on the immediate events that happened after the zombies found themselves thrown into Earth Z. Here, we find out that Earth 2149's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man had been desperately looking for a permanent cure for his condition. He may not be looking for brains anymore, but the virus still ran through his veins. Pete eventually found himself on Earth Z, where he discovered that the Peter Parker of this world was still attending college. Most importantly, Zombie Pete got the idea that the artifact called the Lifeline Tablet could help him cure his zombie infection. The problem was Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, was also looking for this thing. He then hired the Sinister Six to do just that. A whole mess happened that ultimately led to Earth Z's Peter Parker getting taken out by the Sandman, while the other Sinister Six turned into zombies before Earth 2149 Peter took it upon himself to eliminate these newly undead villains in order to stop Earth Z from devouring and developing a zombie wasteland. Along the way, Zombie Giant Man came face to face with Uatu the Watcher and proceeded to consume him. A couple of years later, Earth Z's Iron Man had to deal with his own zombie problem when Earth 2149's Giant Man snuck into Stark Industries' offices to try to steal some of Tony's tech. Giant Man would first turn Tony's friend, Happy Hogan, into an undead monster, and the whole thing would snowball into an entire building was filled with zombies. Earth-Z, Tony, and his pal James Rhodes initially managed to fend off the zombie horde. However, Tony ended up losing his life in the end, while Rhodes escaped and dealt with the remaining undead. Once again, Earth-Z didn't become a zombie-infested universe by the skin of its teeth. Another couple of years passed, and this time we got caught up with Earth's 2149's Wolverine. Now, Earth-Z's own Claude Canuck, along with fellow X-Men Kitty Pryde, were right in the middle of dealing with the Hand during this time. Their operations were interrupted when zombie Wolverine came into the picture and proceeded to eat a few Hand ninjas. Now, Earth 2149 Spidey would team up with Earth-Z's Wolverine and Kitty Pryde when it came to deal with the zombie Logan. On top of all that, we also learned that zombie Spidey had developed a vaccine that could suppress the hunger virus, albeit temporarily. This chapter ends when Earth-Z's Wolverine takes out zombie Wolverine, and in the aftermath, Earth-Z Wolverine even gave zombie Spidey some of his blood in hopes that would lead Pete to finding a permanent cure for the hunger virus. On a more bittersweet note, Earth-Z Wolverine also ended up becoming a zombie, but unlike Earth 2149's counterpart, this Logan managed to suppress his brain-eating urges. This again prevented Earth-Z from turning into something like The Walking Dead. A few years pass and we see Earth-Z Hulk and his gang of intergalactic warriors called the Warbound have arrived on Blue Arena of the Moon after leaving the planet Sakaar. Hulk and the Warbound would then encounter Earth 2149's Giant Man, who had since turned the inhabitants of the place, the Inhumans, into zombies. And as you'd expect, a fight happened between the two factions, which ended with the Warbound becoming zombie food and Giant Man infecting Earth-Z Hulk with the hunger virus. From there, Hulk traveled to Earth and promptly started an undead outbreak in the middle of New York City. The Illuminati would send the superhero Sentry to deal with the rampaging Green Giant, but it didn't work as planned because the Sentry ended up becoming a zombie too after a bit of trickery from Hulk and his alter ego Bruce Banner. And unlike the close calls of the past, Earth-Z was now about to suffer the same fate as Earth 2149. Fast forward to a few years later, and we learn that Earth-Z did really turn into a dead world after the Hulk's arrival from the Blue Arena of the Moon. What's more is that Earth-Z's zombified version of the Avengers managed to take out a few of the OG Earth 2149 zombies like Janet, Luke, and T'Challa. Meanwhile, Giant Man was still at it trying to come up with a device that would help him turn more worlds into undead wastelands. Everything comes to a head when Giant Man and the Earth-Z Avengers get into a fight with Earth 2149 Spidey and Earth-Z's new Avengers, made up of this world's now zombified versions of Hulk, Sandman, Iron Man, and Wolverine. Giant Man would try to use the Sentry as a power source for his teleportation device. However, he and all the other zombified heroes bit the dust before he could proceed with his grand multiverse hopping plan. It was also revealed that Uatu was alive and well this whole time, since the Watchers are pretty much immune to being zombie food. And ultimately, Uatu would prevent the rest of the Marvel Universe from turning into undead wastelands when he sent the Sentry back in time to another universe, one that we've grown familiar throughout this video. Specifically, Uatu threw the Sentry to Earth 2149 at this point in time, right before it became a zombie haven. Simply put, Marvel is using some time loops here. You see, Earth-Z's Sentry was actually the one who kickstarted the zombie apocalypse on Earth 2149. Of course, this all wouldn't have happened if Earth 2149's OG zombies didn't travel to Earth-Z in the first place, but such is the nature of time loops. And hey, at least Uatu managed to contain the zombie apocalypse to only 2 universes within the wider Marvel universe, so that's why not every single universe is zombie infected.